The Stir Up with MsCosmo.
This Sunday on The Stir Up. We pop bottles with the king of cotton. We stroll through the daisies and go back to the city. Tune in as we host the biggest festival directors in South Africa and talk all things hip-hop and eventing. Tune in from 7 p.m. as we hang out with Riky Rick, George Avakian, DJ Dimplez, and Osmic for our first roundtable conversation of 2020 on The Stir Up with me, MsCosmo.
Stir Up
With MsCosmo.
exclusive to 5FM.
Hey, Miss Cardi B kicking off the party for us here on 5FM. Welcome to the hottest party here on 5. It is The Stir Up. My name is MsCosmo, with you for the next 3 hours here on 5FM. We got a jam-packed show lined up for you for tonight. Something new, something I haven't done in a while, but something that we've been kind of planning, but not really, didn't really put it together soon enough because maybe we were scared. I don't know. Hopefully, it's going to go according to plan. Hopefully, it's not going to get too heated. But we do have our first panel roundtable discussion happening tonight. I do have the likes of DJ Dimplez, Riky Rick, Osmic from Back to the City, as well as George Avakian from Daisies, who are going to be joining me in studio for tonight. We're going to be chatting about music festivals, hip-hop festivals, and what they mean to the culture. So for any comments, questions that you might possibly have, you can interact with us on social media, as well as on WhatsApp. 082-550-5151 is the number to dial to send your WhatsApps. And of course, hashtag The Stir Up was where we at. MsCosmo SA is where I'm at on Twitter. And you can also tweet us on The Weekend of 5. But with that, I'm just going to get you in the right mood, give you some really awesome music here on 5FM. Let's go. If you got a chance to check this performance out on YouTube, it is up. Cooley Chana featuring Casper Nyovest on this one. Ichu! He gave us fire a few weeks back here in Auckland Park on the SABC. Cooley Chana hanging out with Casper Nyovest on this one. It's going to be hot and heavy here on The Stir Up tonight. Quite keen to be chatting to the gentlemen who are in studio with me tonight. I do have Osmic from Back to the City. What up?
Yes, ma'am. How you doing? How's everybody doing?
I'm good. I do have DJ Dimplez, who's shooting, a video for himself, hopefully. What's up, Dimplez?
What's up, Noni? How are you?
I'm good. And I've also got the gentleman who's just joined us in studio. What's up, Ricky?
I was like trying to sneak in so quietly.
There's no sneaking in here.
Just to, make people think I was here the whole time. Now you exposed me.
I mean, the show just started, so it's fine. Don't worry.
Sorry for being late. What's up,
No,
fellas?
you're not that late because George is not here yet, so don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're not so
George
bad.
is the mark on how early and late people are. I'll be George in my life.
For tonight. All right, so we're going to be chatting about hip-hop festivals and what they mean to the culture, how everybody who is in studio with us tonight is basically involved in something that's really huge with regards to the hip-hop space. I'm going to kick it off by chatting to Osmic first. Back to the City is something phenomenal that comes in for the hip-hop space. Obviously, you guys have been running for close to 12 years now, if I'm not mistaken.
14 years.
14 years. Got my numbers wrong. Jeez.
It's okay.
And of course, when you started back then, I mean, you had the likes of Pro was the biggest rapper. Obviously, Squatter Camp were kind of doing their thing. What was it about the hip-hop scene back in 2007 that made you say, you know what, we need something for the culture, we need to kick off with this festival?
Well, look, the general idea where sort of I saw it possible to do something of that sort was inspired by a gentleman called Emil. So in Cape Town, they've got this thing called African Battle Cry. Emil had been doing that for quite some time. So when I was in high school, as a graffiti artist, b-boy, and we were at this competition called Africa Battle Cry, and I saw that and I was like, wow, that's amazing. How come we do not have something like that in Joburg? Because at the time, we would have a once in a while concert, you know, and it was not really a hip-hop outfit that's there to promote culture. But Cape Town had been doing all these things for quite some time. So I think after I was done with high school, at the time I had a store and a club in Newtown. And a good friend of mine called Dominique Soma from Unlearn was like, look, I saw this thing and I've got this vision. I do not know how it's going to happen, but I somehow see graffiti artists painting under the N1 pillars. I see b-boys on their own stage. I see rappers. Because also I had a lot of insight into culture at the time, because I think 5 years earlier I had a hip-hop magazine at the time.
Yeah.
I was selling mixtapes, and the store had become sort of like the meeting point of culture.
Yeah.
So I sort of saw everyone from zero to hero, and it made so much sense to say it would be so amazing to see a lot of people gather and actually see what is happening.
Yes.
And this is sort of how this Back to the City thing gets born.
Nice.
So I think it was and I think what made me say, okay, we've got something here, is that the first one, when there was like over 3,500 kids.
On the first one?
Yeah. Wow. The first one, we were already in trouble. And literally, that thing was running at a loss for like 5 years. I think these gentlemen will attest to running sort of big, large-scale events, is that it's just problems and then after problems.
Yeah.
And you can tell that passion goes into it. That's why we keep doing them.
Yeah.
I think for the fact that all those numbers turned out, and for the fact that I think all that media attention happened, it said to me that the timing was just about right.
Yeah.
Because it's the time when brands were also starting to entertain us a little bit. I always make this joke that one of my first sponsorship was from Red Bull, and they gave me 1,500.
That's a lot of money.
There was a lot of money then, because
Yes.
I could buy spray cans for graffiti artists.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
It cut one of your costs, but obviously we're going to get into all of those nitty-gritties a little bit later. But what is it about Back to the City that makes it so special for you? Why specifically Freedom Day every year?
Well, for me, it's actually funny. The hip-hop aspect comes second. The first thing that comes to me with the festival is the fact that it happens in the most important day in the country, which is called Freedom Day.
Yeah.
And my big push has always been about, I'd noticed that a lot of youth at the time did not actually understand what the day meant.
Yes.
Because if you've got a kid that's born in 95, if you've got a kid that's born in the 2000s, they could care less about Freedom Day. But
Yeah.
I thought I could take it upon myself to sort of highlight what the day is. Hence, when you see our flyers, we'll have all these different, political heroes.
Yeah.
Hence, we'll have a theme. Hence, we'll have a conference where we invite people to talk about all these different issues. Hence, we've got psychologists, So to me, it was highlighting that day and the importance, and also sort of reminding future kids what actually it means to be black in Africa.
Nice. I really dig that.
Then hip-hop then comes in, because the beauty about the culture is that it's an expressive art form. There's the b-boys, there's the graffiti artists, there's the beat makers, there's all these different elements that come together.
There's the DJs. Why uslahla manje?
Of course there's the DJs. The DJs were the originals.
Of course.
But graffiti artists came before though.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think that's the importance about it, is how do we use this beautiful art form to do this mass communication? Because if you look at where the world is today, as we all know that, anyone or anything youth, they pulses on this thing called hip-hop.
I hear you. Nice one. So that's Osmic from Back to the City. We are going to get deep with regards to, we're going to chat to DJ Dimplez in a moment as well, from a Pop Bottles perspective. Obviously, Riky Rick is here to talk on Cotton Fest. And of course, George Avakian is going to give us a little bit more insight with regards to Rocking the Daisies. We're still here on 5FM. Send through some of your questions, your comments, 082 550 5151. DJ Dimplez on this one, featuring Kid X on this one. Is called Jump My Fans here on 5FM. We're still here on the Stir Up. And of course, we are chatting to these gentlemen with regards to their hip-hop festivals and what their meaning is, their impact rather, on the culture with regards to, expanding things a little bit further. So, DJ Dimplez, you kicked off Pop Bottles, which was actually your birthday party.
Yeah.
And that started off as an event that was happening out in Norwood. I remember going to those parties all the time, trying to make sure I get there before 4 o'clock. Otherwise, I got to pay to get in. I ain't finna pay nobody to get into an event. And it obviously created a buzz. It was one of those events that everybody needed to get to. And it also sparked off Sunday culture, in my opinion, because it was also one of those things that it wasn't really a big thing to go out on a Sunday, but you chose a Sunday specifically for you to have those events. Now it's gotten to a point where you don't do it every Sunday, but rather decide to have it sporadically throughout the year. Why the change, or why the shift with regards to how you've structured Pop Bottles?
Firstly, you put me on a show with the people that speak a lot.
But I'm giving you your chance now to talk. You don't have to talk.
No, people mustn't expect too much from me. What was the question again?
I wanted to know. You see, you're defending yourself already. I wanted to know why the change from doing it monthly to now doing it sporadically throughout the year.
So when we first started, obviously it was just my birthday, my actual birthday, and then people were like, no, dude, do it again, because it was a bit different.
Yes.
Back then. So we obviously did it. About 2 months later, it got bigger, and then we did it monthly. And then there was a time where obviously people go to Durban July. I think this is like 9 months after we first started.
Yeah.
And we were all booked up at Durban July. So I was like, okay, now let's have it in Durban then.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that one was a success as well. So it just kind of happened. Nothing was really planned.
Nice.
You know what I mean? I can't tell you that I planned it, but it just happened.
I guess that's the nature of the beast. When you're doing something, it kind of evolves into something much bigger than you actually expect it to be. It's always just one idea, and then you kind of roll with it, right? But obviously, coming into eventing and doing something as often as you do, doing it more than once a year, it becomes a thing where you kind of have to think outside the box and offer new experiences. How do you always try and give those new experiences for each Pop Bottles?
I mean, we're lucky enough to do it in different cities. So different cities have different needs.
Yeah.
So you kind of always cater to the city that you're doing the gig in. So that in terms of themes, I mean, when we first started, we used to do themes, theme-based gigs. That just adds to the event, you know, and also like the type of artists you bring on.
Yes.
Sometimes you have a Riky who have a band.
Yes.
And obviously the stage needs to accommodate, you know. So those sort of things all come together. Nothing is on, like I said, there's no book that I follow or anything. So like,
but there is a book that you follow, because every time there's a Pop Bottles, you see a flyer, it's just the DJs. You never announce who's performing. What's the thinking behind that?
The thinking behind it is that the event has got to pull people.
Okay.
The event has to be what people come for, and also at the end of the day, you don't want to give away too much. So like, I always felt like if you had a lineup, people could almost gauge on what the event's going to be like, what's going to happen, you know.
Yes.
So the surprise element was also to give that artist a chance to be free, you know. It's not like too planned, it's not too formal, it's not, you know. So it's just hip hop, man. People must come for the culture of hip hop and not necessarily for the lineup.
Nice, I hear you. We're gonna get into that a little bit later on, because I do realize it is something that's kind of changing with regards to eventing. But just the last thing also I wanted to find out, you've now expanded Pop Bottles from just being a South African event to taking it internationally. Is that something that you're trying to do continuously every year?
Yeah, that's something I've always wanted to do. Like even probably the first year that we started Pop Bottles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been a venue-based gig. We're always changing venues.
Yes.
So at some point you're gonna run out of venues.
Yeah.
You know? And you're gonna want to create different experiences. And for us, people see it as an international, as another country. We almost plan it as another venue, another destination.
Yes.
Rather than just trying to go international.
And I guess it also helps because you can also kind of tap into a different market with regards to the people who are there. Some people who maybe caught the FOMO of wanting to be in Joburg, but now they get to experience it as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, if as much as we travel, we always get that sense that people really want what's happening here.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a market where I look at 50 million, 60 million people, and there's the whole of Africa that you can look at, you know.
Yeah. 60 million, ala, Dimple's trying to get that money. All right, we're still hanging out here on the Stir Up, and I did say that I am taking some of your comments, some of your questions on the WhatsApp line 082-550-5151. We'll be chatting to Riky Rick in a moment about Cotton Fest. Riky Rick in the studio with me. We are going to be chatting to him about Cotton Fest. That one was I Can't Believe It by the homie himself. Are you in position now?
Yeah, but
which
I don't
way?
understand,
This way?
'cause, like,
That way? You say it to
I'm
people
letting-
every weekend, but you can't
I'm
listen
letting,
to
I'm
you.
letting your listeners know that I've got 2 cameramen in the studio telling me how to sit and where to sit.
But you tell
And
people
it's
where to
making me-
jump
it's making
every
me
weekend.
uncomfortable. No, but that's part of my job description. I think with the cameramen, I think you actually meant to move around for the angle, no?
No, they put them there for the angle already before you came.
Hey, but Fitz, you guys are gonna stress me out. Is this going on YouTube?
Yes, it is going on YouTube.
Right, I'm gonna watch if the angle was the one. If the angle wasn't the one, I've got issues with you guys.
I've already got a problem happening
Big
here.
problems.
Anyway, we're here on 5FM. This is the Stir Up. I got Riky Rick, who's going to be chatting to us about Cotton Fest. Shout out for the second one rolling out on the 1st of February. I think it was extremely successful. Everybody who came out, everybody had good things to say. I just wanted to know, what was that thing that made you feel that the scene was lacking that type of event that was going to feed to the kids, something that needed to be in Newtown, that you decided, you know what, I'm going to take it upon myself and actually make it rock?
I mean, I guess that's like a constant feeling that always happens, especially when you're dealing with hip hop.
Yeah.
Like Osmic was saying before, there's very few events that truly represent what hip hop is about. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And at different times
Yes.
of its lifespan. You know, and I felt like, you know, we were doing like so many gigs where kids were turning up.
Yes.
And like kids were trying to rage and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And there was like gigs where it's like 100 people, 200 people.
Yes.
You know, maximum 500 people. And it's like really quite like an underground movement. And I was watching like freshers not become as hype as it was before, you know. Like the first week of school was always like the week that we all wanted to go perform somewhere.
Yes.
And like say hello to all the new kids that came into the city. So Cotton Fest really came about like really trying to fill that gap of what says hello when people come into the city, and from a hip-hop perspective, are we able to gather all the rages from all around Gauteng or maybe all around the country and come together?
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do at this stage. So
That's
I'm
so
happy, I'm
dope.
happy that it's starting off.
And I'm sure for you, you're also quite taken aback at how the support has been really dope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes starting an event like Osmic had mentioned a little bit earlier, that he had 3,000 people, which is a lot. Just by the way, if you're hosting an event, 3,500 people is a lot of people. But to kick off an event and for it to be so successful, for you to have so many people already on the second edition and that type of support, how did that kind of like make you feel to say, okay, we're gonna push on next year, we're gonna go bigger and better?
Well, yeah. Well, right now we're just like I'm just trying to make it better at some stage. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily trying to make it bigger, like on purpose.
Really?
I'm just necessarily just trying to make it better. Like even if we have to like cut down the numbers and go back to how many people we had the original year,
Yeah.
that'll be fine with me. Just trying to make the experience better because like.
How many artists did you have on the lineup this year?
This year it was like 125 or something.
How do you manage so many people? Jeez, I'd have a headache.
It's quite easy, like you know, like with artists it's quite different. Like you know, when there's one artist that is like headlining a show or that everyone's coming to see, you know, the ego kicks in a bit different when there's like 150 of your peers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you see your peers getting involved and having fun with a concept and really making it their own, it's like it puts you in a whole different mind state, you know.
Nice.
It puts me in a different mind state, you
Yes.
know, when I know that Avis is doing something and he needs us all to be there.
Yeah.
It puts you in a different zone. you
Yeah.
know. Your riders become less, you know. Everything you start asking for becomes much less. And
I was
and,
actually about
you know,
to ask you that as well,
it's quite
because
easy.
the transition for you being an artist, getting into eventing is now different, because essentially sometimes as an artist you also kind of have all these big demands and you always say, okay, I want to make sure that I pull up like this. If I'm at a show, I need to make sure my take is like that. 1, 2, 3. Now you're on the other side, you're on the promoter side, where you're now having to deal with all of these 1,000 demands. How did that kind of make you think back a little bit and say, oh, actually, you know, we need to be able to work together on this?
Well, yeah. Well, one thing I learned quickly is like nothing is personal. Like quickly, like it's the first thing you have to learn. Like it's actually not personal at all. But at the same time, it's like I think artists have those type of demands. They're sort of like creating safeguards for them being able to have an enjoyable experience at an event.
Yeah.
You know, most times you don't know who's bringing you out. You don't know what the environment is. You don't know who's gonna be there. You don't know what the crowd is gonna be like. So, you know, people send these demands so they can know that I'm guaranteed to be okay.
Yes.
You know, at this event. And with Cotton Fest it's different because I think just the energy around it, it's like, you know, already you're gonna have fun in some sort of capacity.
Yes.
You know, you're not even you're really thinking about the people that are gonna be there.
Yes.
And what the crowd is gonna be like at that certain moment. You already know it's gonna be alright. So I think that sort of like falls away a little bit. You know, you forget about that a little bit.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
lucky. Huh? You struck it lucky with that one. All right, so that is Riky Rick chatting about Cotton
Hold
Fest.
on, am I done? No, yo.
For now.
Osmic had like 15 minutes.
Because he took his time.
George. No, I had one thing to say.
George's mic is off
man,
because he's late, but we'll get to him just now.
You're kicking me out, Cosmo. I can't believe this.
I'm not kicking you out. We're still going to chat. What's your problem? I was getting a background.
I can't believe this. Yo,
Okay.
guys, please call in and tell MsCosmo she got to give me more time to speak.
I'm going to cut off your mic right now. All right. So that's Ricky and his complaints here on 5FM. But we're going to get into it a little bit more. George has officially decided to join us. Thank you so much for joining us.
The show has officially begun. Everybody, welcome.
What a
It's
problem.
time. You ready, B?
The white guy got here late. Hey! Anyway, we're going to get into that in a moment. Speaking to George about Rocking the Daisies. Remember to send through some of those questions and comments to the WhatsApp line 082 550 5151. Hey. Stormzy on 5FM with Bossy Bob. We do have George Avakian in studio with us tonight.
Yes.
Thank you for finally joining us.
Sorry I'm late, guys. You know that flight from Cape Town.
Hey.
It's tricky sometimes.
Hi, at least you've changed the stereotype because at least all the rest of the guys were here on time. Anyway, George. All right, so you working on Rocking the Daisies, which is a really old festival.
Yeah.
But from what it was when it was mainly rock and indie artists, it's now turned into a more commercialized type of event, to the point where you've actually booked a lot of hip-hop artists as well. Why did you decide to firstly actually headline somebody like Stormzy for this year, and over and above, why that change or why that shift to be more inclusive to the hip-hop culture?
Well, I think let's take it back to 2016, you know, when we first acquired the festival. It was 98% predominantly white folk that would go to the festival. That is not a true reflection of the country we live in.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, immediately I think my first call was Dimplez. I was like, Dimplez, what are we saying? Pop bottles, stage, let's make it happen. The second thing we had to get right was I was trying to convince, you know, we still had the previous guys who owned the festival running it that first year. And it was trying to convince them to book Mac Miller. And they were like, you know, just like complaining that's not the right booking. And, you know, it was such a special moment to actually have seen him live, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that was the first. And I mean, how could you not have the biggest genre in the world, like at the festival? I mean, just wake up, you know? And throughout the years, it's found its transition and finally found its place. And I think it's just been a full 360. Stormzy, I mean, just shout out to him and his team. They really, like, he's 1.2 million pounds for a performance. He called us up and said, yo, man, we're trying to play that festival. We're trying to headline. What do we need to do to make it happen? So
you've
like,
got 1.2 million
no,
pounds.
No, we don't. No worries. Of course not. Hey.
I'm coming to you for a loan, my brother.
But it was just incredible for him to come through and drop his fee and just make it happen, because he's like, that's the festival I want to play.
Nice.
That's where I want to be. That's where my fans are.
That's so dope that you've actually created that type of international rapport for Rocking the Daisies. Do you think there was especially now in 2020, where you find like hip-hop is also transitioning to the whiter market, do you think that they also want that hip-hop to actually be at festivals like this?
Well, I don't even see it that way, or color or anything. Right now, we're just trying to break whatever's new and current, and whoever's pushing any boundary across any genres, and anybody who is taking hip-hop has so many sub-genres now, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm super grateful to be here with all of these guys, because you have brought people who are within the culture putting on festivals and events. There are too many people who look at it from afar and they go, well, I think this is how it should be done because we can make money, or we can pull this market and pull that one, we're gonna sell tickets. These are the people who are like building the culture. They are within. We've all seen their careers in the last 10 years, and you know, it's just incredible that they are my peers and we can do what we do.
Hey man, okay, we're gonna get into it a little bit more with these gentlemen. Remember to send through some of your comments on the WhatsApp line. We'll be back after these. Usanele featuring ASAP Shembe on this one, Velase no Shembe. It was our number one track of the local top 5 last week, Sunday. We do have a brand new number one for this week. We're going to get into the top 5 in a moment, but I'm still hanging out with the gentleman in studio here on the Stir Up on 5FM. I do have George Avakian, DJ Dimplez, Osmic from Back to the City, as well as Riky Rick from Cotton Fest. And getting into eventing is not an easy task. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of stress. And it's one of those things that kind of make you sit back and say, do I really want to do this? Because as any entrepreneur who gets into the business, you sit back and you say, okay, I'm passionate about this thing, but can I really bankroll this thing? You know what I mean? So I want you guys, well, we'll kick it off maybe with Osmic. You did mention a little bit earlier that Back to the City was running at a loss for 5 years before you actually started making a profit.
And it broke even for another 5 years.
And now you're making money.
Not really.
Okay.
Because I take the money and then I do this thing called Hip Hop Awards and a museum, and so I don't understand why I do that.
Because you're passionate about the culture. But what we're trying to get into here is obviously the entrepreneurial point of it. It's very difficult for you to kind of keep reinvesting. What keeps that going, or how do you actually then decide, okay, I'm actually going to get into this thing. I'm actually even going to put in my own money into this thing, to a point where some people even go broke, because I realize some events actually have to liquidate because they can't keep it up. And especially an event like Rocking the Daisies, George, where you have to get international artists. Isn't that the most difficult part?
Guys, you know, like 2016, we lost 13 million rand. Like, just let that sink in. We were sold out, so we're at full capacity and we lost 13 million rand. That's how real this thing is. And on top of that, like, you're looking after so many people and you got to keep them safe, and you got to, you know, make sure you comply with all the safety rules and so on and so forth. Like, it really is a tough, you know, event to get right. But over and above that, like, especially when you know, we do in the city as well, that's in town, those challenges to throw events in town is like, you know, it will keep you up at night. It will give you chest hairs, you see.
So the venue has a lot to do with regards to how you actually structure the event. Ricky, I'm going to throw this to you as well, because you do yours in Newtown. The safety aspect for the event needs to be considered. Surely that's also a hectic price point for you, or cost point rather. Yeah,
but you know, yeah, as long as people are safe and as long as things run smoothly, that's the goal. But like for me, I don't like, money has never been a factor in anything I've ever done. Like, money's never been like the driving force, you know, to make me wake up in the morning and try make it happen, you know, and try to get people together. I don't think it is for anyone who's sitting here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a heavy cost that we decided to take on when you picked up the first beat, or when you started your first beatbox, or when you dropped your first mixtape, or the first time you wanted a set of decks.
Yes.
DJ Dimplez.
Yes.
Was the first time you committed yourself to a life of losing a lot of money.
Yes.
To live your passion.
Hey, but the passion is expensive, because the passion also comes with a lot of demands, and those demands come from different people. From a consumer perspective, from an artist perspective, you need to cater to all of these people, and you're having to fund all of these things. Is it that easy for you to actually even get sponsorship? D, I'm going to send this to you, because obviously with Pop Bottles having run for so long, you've also got some really dope sponsors on board. Is it that easy for you to keep selling it back to them every year?
Luckily, I've always had a good relationship with most of my sponsors, you know. So we've held on to a lot of them for a long time. So I think it's always about, like Ricky said, if you're doing it for the passion and the culture, it just makes it easy to even sell your thing to the different brands. Sorry, my voice is going.
It's okay.
Don't cry, man. Don't cry.
We got you, D.
Yeah,
Don't
man.
worry.
I mean, it's all about relationships. It is difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult. Every year you have to go in, and obviously people want certain things out of your events or what you're doing. And like Ricky said, we probably think culture first.
Yes.
And that's where your clash always comes with the sponsor, because them it sells, right?
Yes.
But yeah, man, we just keep going. Every year you have to sit there and sell.
But it's the most important part.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
That's where you get your funds from. You know, we started with 3.5 million rand sponsorship to pushing it now to over 20, just only because we're changing, guys. Like, just some word of advice to people doing the eventing thing out there: change the structure. Don't go with this platinum is this much, gold is this much, silver package sponsorship. Change the whole playing field. Think of it differently. Think what brands are trying to get, understand what they're trying to achieve, understand what their KPIs are. And you know, honestly, if you build something and it's incredible and it's real, like everyone here has done, like the brands should come. You know?
Yes, they'll definitely come knocking.
And we need people to make noise and make sure they come.
But
You know?
they don't come in the right way, man.
Hey, hopefully we'll make
They
them.
come, but they don't come in the right way.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna get into that a little bit more with the guys here in studio right after these. Focalistic man, world star with Next Door on 5FM, sitting at number 5 of the local top 5 brand new entry for this week. We do have a brand new number 1 as well. We're gonna get into that in a moment. But I still have the homies in studio. We're still chatting about hip hop events, their effect and impact on the culture. So, guys, I know.
I have a question. Sorry to cut you.
Ooh, okay, it's
question.
George's show. Yes, George.
Sorry, we've got to get to the point.
Told you
here.
the champ is here.
Osmic, what's going on with Back to the City?
No,
Please,
we're
talk to
gonna
us,
get into it. Can you let me run
Can't
the
be
show?
the last one, please.
I think he's looking at the clock. He's calculating like, I got 5 minutes.
No.
If I'm gonna ask Osmic this question, he's gonna need for 6.5 minutes to answer.
Okay, since we're there now, you didn't let me get to my question. But anyway, all right. So obviously, most events have a timeline. Well, some events have a timeline, others don't. Some can continue like Coachella for years and years and years. But Osmic, you've decided that next year might possibly be the last Back to the City. That's mind-shattering for all those tens and thousands of people who come every single year.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it has, first of all, it has achieved what it was meant to achieve.
Okay.
So the first thing is, when it also started out, I think it also goes back to a lot of the different stuff that we've done over the years, whether it was the store in Newtown, whether it was, you know, to say, it'd be so amazing if there was like 20 other stores like this store. It would be so amazing if there was like 20 other festivals like this festival. Because you must remember, when the festival started, there was nothing of the sort for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That actually was very difficult for us, because every time when we went in to seek for sponsorship or partnership, no one knew what we were talking about. Because we like, yeah, there's this hip hop thing, it's big, these kids come here, and then everyone's like, but the minute there's more people doing it, it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
It means, you know, now we start talking commerce. So I think it got to a point where, for me, very much happy, especially when George and the fellas got the Rocking the Daisies, and the first thing that they did is called on Dimplez and started booking some of our guys.
Were you heartbroken?
I was very happy.
Oh, you were happy. Oh.
Because
I thought maybe you were sad
did,
they didn't give you the phone call.
Me? No. No. It was amazing, you know, for me, because when he did that, I knew what it meant.
Okay.
It meant that a hip hop guy is penetrating a different market. So when he penetrates that market, you must understand that Cape Town, that's where a lot of the big brands sit.
Yeah.
So they go to that festival. So when they're there and they're seeing Riky perform and they're seeing the pop bottle stage, it becomes easier, and it becomes also a beautiful reality when years later Riky does his festival and goes to these brands and say, I'm doing this. They get it. So I think it like I said, it achieved what I wanted it to do. And I think the culture looks very healthy from where I'm standing. And I think I need to do something else.
So you want to go out with a bang, basically?
No, I'm not going out with no bang. I'm just
You're just done.
No, but that's the festival. Remember, right now we're busy building a museum.
Yes.
And the reason this museum has been built is because, trust you me, you do not want 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when we're all 55, 60 years old and our history is narrated. So I want Ricky's kids to go there and say, there was this guy called Riky Rick, there was this event called Bob Waters, there was this beatboxer called George. And that is now the space that I think I've moved into, to say, how do we preserve culture? Because to me, that's very important. So that is sort of that lane. And you know, we've got the South African Hip Hop Association as well, where we're starting now to say, okay, cool. How do we engage government? How do we bring government to the table?
Yes.
And also, how do we, because I say we are the custodians of culture. How do we put some of these brands to task? Yes, there's brands that I think come in with a pure heart to try assist, but also there's certain brands that come in with, I think, false pretenses.
Yeah.
And if there's a body, think of mining sector. You can't touch those guys because they're united, they're together.
Exactly.
So that is now, I think, another sort of level of thinking.
Are you creating a union there for hip hop or what?
We're not creating it, we've created it. And it's about to...
We're going to be striking in town very soon.
No, we go to parliament. I mean, imagine hip hop people in parliament.
Yes.
And when there's a white paper, because you know right now there's an arts and culture white paper about rights that I'm probably sure that 60%, if not 80% of hip hop people don't know about, but it's going to affect their rights.
Yes.
You know? So these are the sort of things that we need to start also engaging in.
I hear you.
I think that's sort of the space that one is trying
Doesn't
to
mean Back to the City needs to end, but we hear you.
But
we've got
Riky, we've got and I'm sure there's going to be more others coming after this.
Yeah,
you know? There's going to be a new gen, you know?
Yes,
I heard you ran out of artists, man.
Dimplez. Dimplez is saying that also because he's trying to find where these new artists to surprise us with at every pop bottles. But one thing that I think kind of affects everybody when it comes to eventing, from the consumer all the way through to you guys, is the pricing factor. How do you choose how to actually charge tickets for events? Because everybody will come through and be like, hey, we see AKA every weekend. Why are you going to charge me 1,000 rand? I ain't got it. I've only got 100 rand. So you need to keep playing this ball back and forth with the consumer with regards to pricing.
Well, look, I think it depends what you're offering first and foremost, you know, and it's dependent on a budget that you build. You know, for us personally, like, if I have to think about ticket sales make up a quarter of the turnover. Like, just think about that. Ticket sales, you sell out, the show's done, you're at max capacity. That's a quarter of your full turnover. That's a quarter of your cost. That means, like, what you're paying compared to what you're receiving is, like, ridiculous. I don't think we'll ever in this country, not in the next 10, 20 years, be able to charge what you are supposed to charge to even break even or make a profit. You know?
Why not though? Why can't we change the mind of the consumer, Ricky?
Man, I don't think it's changing the mind, because, you know, people pay for what they want to pay for at the end of the day. It's not about, you know, people buy cars and people buy shoes, people buy a lot of things. So if people can ball out in the club and buy a bottle of champagne for 2,000 rand. It's not about changing the mind. It's like if someone wants to go to Daisies, and they're gonna make a plan to go to Daisies, you know, and it's like you gotta stay focused on working on that experience. And every time you get that experience right, the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. You don't want to force people like, here's the ticket at this price, come and get it. It's like, you know, you want the right people at your event, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I mean, economically speaking, it's like, it is hectic, because like this weekend alone, it's like you're coming off a back of doing 5 shows, and you're right, people get to see you all the time. And that's something that, like, Cotton Fest for me was something to also try to step away from doing a lot of shows, because it's like, you know, the body and the brain really messes you up, you know. And sometimes, like, when I look at my year, I really just want to perform at a Daisies. I just want to do that pop bottles for Dimplez. I just want to do that Back to the City set that I know is going to be lit and it's going to be fire. So I don't think it's really changing the mind of the consumer. I think it's really also changing the way that artists tour in this country. That's like a big. That's probably like the biggest issue with tickets.
Yes.
Because people will easily spend 500 rand to see a Riky Rick show if I only perform twice a year in a certain city. People would easily do that, but I think the way that we tour, man, it's oversaturation. It's like everywhere all the time. So, you know, promoters have to deal with that too. Yes,
I hear that, and it's obviously affecting the pricing with regards to that as well. But I guess in this industry, it's also always going to change because demands are different. Whether you are a consumer obviously wanting to pay the lowest pricing ticket, to how much you're going to spend at the bar, so isn't it difficult for you to kind of then say, what I'm trying to kind of get to is, how do you actually then sit back and say, okay, I'm only going to charge 590 for this weekend pass, whereas for the experience you should be paying close to 3,000 rand?
Yeah, well, you should.
I think markets are different.
Yeah.
Number one. because from the festival point of view, we obviously look at the economy, number one. Like, I think we also living in tough times. That's a reality.
Yeah.
That people don't have jobs and people want to have this experience, right?
Yeah.
So at times, I remember there was one year that the biggest problem we used to have at the festival was people jumping the gate. It was just the weirdest thing that people are jumping the gate.
How is that weird? They want to get in for free.
But the question is, you know what we did? We the people that we sort of caught, instead of trying to deal with them, I needed to also understand, like, you came from wherever you came from, very far, with the idea to jump the gate. And when you start sort of kind of understanding where some of these kids are coming from, then you also start understanding that he really wants to experience this thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that is where we start doing things like early bird at a very cheap price, and that is why we'll start creating different packages for different markets. But at the end of the day, our bulk people are actually kids that cannot really afford to take out a 300 rand or 400 rand. And one has to always cater for them. And especially if I'm going to be talking about Freedom Day, experiencing Freedom Day. This is Freedom Day. Therefore, I sort of need to almost function like a free event borderline.
Yeah.
But at the same time, keeping that quality. And that is why I think it's very important to, like Dimple said, having that, stakeholders relation with your sponsors. I mean, it took us 14 years to get a headline sponsor like Hennessy. It took literally 14 years.
Yeah.
And even for Hennessy to come on board, it was very tricky because you're also trying to explain something that's very tricky, like I'm going to close the road, and then under the highway you're going to spray paint, and then you've got questions like, is that legal? Is graffiti legal? Then you've got all these weird hoops. But the fact is, like I said, then you've got some of these brands that are willing to say, okay, cool, I see your pricing point, I see your market, I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Cool, let's see what we can do with you.
Nice.
Like, different markets, and I think economy is a
big factor.
It's a big factor.
Definitely is. All right. We're still here with the guys. Send through some of your comments, some of your questions. 082-550-5151. We do have our number 4 on the local top 5 for this week. A quick, fast cast with You Know the Vibes. Nels hanging out with Muesli. Fresh click on this one. Hola, hater. Sitting at number 3 of the local top 5. We do have Quick Fast Cast sitting at number 4 of the local top 5 as well with You Know the Vibes. Still got the gentleman in studio with me. We are chatting about hip-hop festivals and the impact on the culture. I do have some questions that have come through on the WhatsApp line. I've got one here from DJ Ecstasy saying, hey, shout out on the really dope guests. I've got one here for Riky Rick and DJ Dimplez, wanting to know, how do they plan events like this? For example, let's say Cotton Fest and Pop Bottles are on the same weekend. How do you make it work and talk about it, even though there's possibly a time clash?
Yeah, actually, we should talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you for the idea. We should definitely talk about that.
But, so, how do you work about scheduling, basically?
But I don't know, like, we only, like, this is the second time we've
You
done
chose
this.
a very weird
Like,
time
I'm
of the
not-
year. You chose the time when people are still broke from December, and you're like, you're buying your tickets whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but, like, it's like I said, for us, we were really trying to, like, we weren't getting the experiences that we were getting and the access we were getting to the students in the first week of school when they
Okay.
were coming into the city. So that's really what we're doing, to tell you the truth. So I don't think we're like it's like a different time. You know what I'm saying?
You're also setting the tone for the year. That's what you're doing,
I guess, yeah. I guess. But it's nice. But it's like most of the, to tell you the truth, most of the tickets are actually bought before people actually get broke.
Really?
Which is dope. Yeah,
That's
which
so
is
dope.
So,
unlike
a
you
lot
have
of
to
them.
you have to then resort to like George does, where he tweets the whole time like, come on, tickets are going out. This thing's in October. He's still talking about tickets today.
You can't do 50% sold out first week, please. I don't want to hear nothing about numbers.
But D, this question was also sent to you, especially because you do Pop Bottles a lot more throughout the year. So how do you deal with scheduling?
So my events have been pretty much the same dates for like the past 10 years or something. So I wouldn't like, for example, if there's a Bacardi holiday club, then you've got time to think about your date, whether you're going to go on the same weekend or you're going to do another weekend. So it's almost you have relationships with other promoters.
Yeah.
Where you guys can, if you guys are on a good note, you'll obviously speak about it where it benefits the both of you.
Yeah.
But sometimes competition is actually good.
Yeah.
Where actually you guys both benefit from being on the same weekend.
Yeah.
So it's all about how you do it,
I guess so. All right, we've also got another question here, which I'm also going to add a little bit of a twist to it. Two people asking the same question, MCL as well as Real Cheddar from Limpopo, both asking, how do you choose up-and-coming artists to perform? But I'm also just going to add a twist to that and say, how do you also just choose even your headliners for your specific event for that year? Because sometimes it does change. As much as Back to the City might have most of the industry, you don't necessarily book everybody.
No.
You know what I mean? So how do you actually get to a point where this is who I'm choosing for this year?
Look, internationally, I look at streams. I look at, there's agencies all over the world that can give you some really good insight. But honestly, like, you also just gotta follow your heart and what you're listening to and what you're enjoying and what you're consuming and what you're, I listen to what people like, but in the same breath, I really follow what I believe could be next, because I've been given this incredible opportunity.
I think for the last 8 years, the internationals that we've been booking have been specific. It's about an older crowd.
Yes.
Because what we had noticed is that the minute the younger kids started coming to the festival, the older guys started being like, I'm not going back to the city because it's for kids.
Yes.
But it's not really about that. So it's a bit tricky to try to get a person that has 3 kids and a wife at home to come out. Therefore, I need to start bringing out the yesteryear artists. So I need to bring out the artists that when they were young used to listen to. And
I only have one request. Wu-Tang Clan, please. That's all I ask for. And then you can close up shop.
Red and meth, please. Red and meth.
Please. Like, I've only got one request. Please.
The question is, the thing is, at one Wu-Tang member, I wish you knew the headache one Wu-Tang member is.
You can do it, Osmic. You've got the clouds. Do
I
it.
have the stress. So, but in terms of the sort of locals, from day one, I never really thought of the lineup as I've got a headline. I've never thought of anyone as a headliner.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought, cool, how does this one benefit from this one?
Yeah.
So how does the current big artist of the time help the new kid that's about to come in? And how I look at the new kid is that he also needs to put in work. So you can't be like a bedroom MC and you're the dopest because your mom says you dope. It always has to be, what work are you putting in? What, are you showing up at events? Are you always online trying to, hustle your hustle?
Yeah.
So those are the sort of elements we look at, and then it becomes easier when you come to the festival because the current big artists in the land and the current emerging artists in that land kind of start sharing fans, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have discovered a lot of new acts. I mean, there's a lot of people that first time they heard Riky was at the festival. And it's like, oh snap, who's that?
Yeah. And I think Cotton Fest also does that really well because, some of those kids, you look at the lineup, you're like, who's this one now? And I play a lot of like new music, but I don't know where Riky finds these kids. How do you...
Yeah, I also saw some kid on the second stage, like he was almost like a big artist. Like he was in the second stage, but he had a persona of a big artist.
Yeah.
Was that him, right? Yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
We need to, and that's the beauty also about it is that if Ricky's at the festival and says, oh shit, who's that kid? Or if I'm at his festival, I'm like, who's that kid? Then I'm able to book him. And when he becomes like a star, then he transitions to pop bottles to George, because George signs the big chicks, so
1.2 million pounds. That's how much he's signing.
But like in terms of artists, like Osmic says, the most important thing is the platform is being created. Yeah. And bring something to that platform, add something to that platform, and people will never forget.
Yes.
A lot of artists want to jump onto, especially big shows. Big shows get a lot of emails and how can I get on, which is a bit strange, and I hear the ambition and everything, but it's like at the time you want to go and do those things, you want to have a little bit of traction. You know what I'm saying?
A bit of a buzz.
There's very few lucky people that manage to squeeze in when nobody knows you.
Yeah.
And that's what all the other shows are for throughout the year. And artists need to know that they need to make their rounds, man. Like make your rounds throughout the year to all the shows.
Yes.
And you're gonna get the attention of the promoters, and they, your platform is gonna be better than someone just you asking them, begging them to play, and then you're on at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
You really wanna build your crowd and offer something to that stage where you wanna
does
be
that
performing.
Does that also play into how most promoters have kind of created relationships, even with regards to maybe say even some of the headliners, where they charge a certain fee to maybe say some promoter in Kuruman, but then when they come back to the city, you've kind of leveraged it out and the fee's a little bit lower, or favor for favor type situation. Have you guys kind of worked that out with regards to payment for such a big festival like Back to the City or even Cotton Fest?
I think for me the simple thing is that, and I always say to everyone, as much as the culture is so big, but the players are so small. We all know each other. Like literally, I would know Riky from my store days. I would know Dimplez from store days. I would know George from store days. So relations are always there, and it's very important. And I think even the newer kids that are listening must understand that word relations are very important, because no man is an island,
Yeah.
So you got to take care of the next man.
Ricky?
Yes, ma'am.
Answer the question.
I'm thinking how to put it in different ways, because obviously everything's different. I want to put it in more in life terms. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like, man, I only started getting some of these lessons now, man. Like literally in the past couple of years. It's like you're gonna meet so many people in your life, from primary school to high school to your tertiary, and all those people are going to play some sort of role in either your development or where you want to go in the future, and it's very important to stay conscious of that. And there's certain events, certain people will always pull up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
just to support.
You really want to have a lot of those in your life, you know what I'm saying?
That's so dope.
And from an artist's point of view, forget being a promoter, just from an artist's point of view and just a person, you want to have a lot of people that you can pick up the phone and say, hey man, I'm having a tough time. This is how I'm feeling. Not even wanting anything, just like, man, this is how I feel. You want to have a lot of people like that in your life.
I hear you. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. It's been a very informative conversation. I think the people listening obviously have learned a few lessons, also understanding the eventing space that is not so easy. But keep putting on really awesome shows. I think people keep on supporting because it's really that dope. Unfortunately, for Back to the City, we've got one more year. But, shout out. Thank you so much, George from Rocking the Daisies, Ricky from Cotton Fest, DJ Dimplez from Pop Bottles, as well as Osmic from Back to the City. We'll be back with more music as well as the top 2 of the local top 5 right after these.